questions. Question orale, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, 38% of Canadians are worried more about money than anything else in their lives, more than their health or their kids or their relationships. What does that tell you? Over 20% of Canadians are skipping meals because they can't afford to eat. They don't need a top-up check from these big spending Liberals. What they want is the price of gas, food, and housing to go down, or at least stop going up. So what are these Liberals, who don't think much about monetary policy, going to do to stop the rising cost of everything?
Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And you know, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to affording the cost of living, for the overwhelming majority of Canadians, the most important thing is to have a job. And that's why our government focused so relentlessly on a jobs-centered recovery. And you know what, Mr. Speaker? It has worked. Canada has recovered 115% of the jobs lost to COVID, compared to just 96% in the U.S. Right now, our unemployment rate at 5.2% is the lowest it has been since comparable records were kept. That matters to Canadians.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Those are completely out of touch and denying reality. That's why single parents, young home buyers, and seniors don't believe that they have a plan. Literally, every single day, people are seeing prices of everything go up. Now, on fiscal policy overall, no one will trust this Prime Minister, who is in a very happy political marriage with the NDP. Just ask the Parliamentary Budget Officer, or maybe former Finance Minister Bill Morneau what he thinks of their fiscal policy. All we see from the tax and spend Liberals is more tax and spend and no plan to fight inflation. Isn't that the truth?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm really glad that the member opposite spoke about seniors, spoke about parents, spoke about people struggling to pay the rent. Because thanks to our policies in this year's budget and last year's budget, there are measures directly focused at helping them. Canada Workers Benefit for low-wage Canadians, a family of 3 will get up to $2,300 more this year. Seniors, 10% increase in the OAS, that's $815, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, families and leaders across the country are tired of seeing repeat offenders in their communities terrorizing them with guns. Conservatives are tired of it too. We are all tired of the Liberals' soft on-crime approach. The Liberals' so-called gun ban is a joke and will do nothing to stop the violence. Just ask frontline officers. Why do these soft-on-crime Liberals think it's okay for drug dealers to shoot up neighborhoods using stolen and smuggled weapons and then be let out on the street literally sometimes the next day and do it all over again? Why?
The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'm glad to have a question about crime, and I want to talk about Bill C-5 and mandatory minimums. And I want to offer a very personal story. When I was a small child, my mother practiced law in Northern Alberta. She did a lot of legal aid work, and the overwhelming majority of her clients were Indigenous. She'd take me to court, and sometimes she'd take me with her to reserves. And I saw firsthand how our criminal justice system treats Indigenous peoples. Our government is fixing that, and everyone in this House should be supportive of that.
The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to quote a representative of a community that this government claims they want to help. The abolition of these minimum sentences is not only a false good idea, but it puts at greater risk the communities that this initiative aims to protect. And that's what Ms. Myrielle Chatelier said at Parliamentary Committee, Mr. Speaker. On the one hand, the Prime Minister abolishes mandatory minimum sentences with C-5, but on the other hand, it does not once mention the victims of violent crimes committed with weapons in C-21. Why does the Prime Minister insist on preferring criminals and helping criminals instead of victims? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, I would like to offer, in response to this question, a very personal answer. When I was a child, my mother worked as a lawyer in northern Alberta. And she did a lot of work with legal aid clients. Many of those clients were Indigenous. And I saw, when I was a child, in court and often on reserves, how our country treats Indigenous people, our justice system. We need to fix this. Our government is going to do that. I hope that all members will support us in that. The Honourable Member for Mégantic-L'Érable. Mr. Speaker, let me tell another personal story, which I heard from somebody from my riding, somebody who is concerned about the cost of living, which means that they are not going to be able to pay their bills and pay their groceries before the end of the month. They're going to have to make some very personal choices, and they're probably going to have to take food off the table for members of their family to be able to pay their bills. This is a personal family that I heard from somebody in my riding, but this is a personal story that many of my colleagues have heard in all of their ridings, Mr. Speaker. Unfortunately, the NDP Liberal government yesterday said no to our concrete measures to help Canadians. Why aren't they helping Canadians? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we understand very well that inflation and the cost of living is an important issue for Canadians, but I want to know why the Conservatives don't support the concrete, targeted measures that we've put in place to help Canadians, like the increase in the Canada Worker Benefit. That is going to give $2,300 more to our most vulnerable workers. There's also the increase in OAS of 10%, Mr. Speaker. That's $815. It's necessary. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, seniors have been left to fend for themselves, faced with a dizzying increase in the cost of living. That's what the Parliamentary Budget Officer confirmed yesterday. 1.7 million seniors have seen their purchasing power slashed because the indexed increase in their pension is lower than inflation. If the federal government doesn't make this right, a third of Quebec's seniors will be out $660 each. Will the Deputy Prime Minister commit to reimbursing seniors for every penny that they will have lost in the next readjustment to OAS? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. I have good news for the leader of the Bloc Québécois, and that is that our government has already decided that starting this summer, we are going to increase OAS by 10%. And this measure, which we have already put in place, will give $815 additional to seniors. This is a good measure. It's a targeted measure that is going to come just when it's necessary. The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. The answer from the Deputy Prime Minister raises two questions. What will be the increase related to inflation, which is devastating for seniors' purchasing power? And also, we want certainty, and this is a major change that we would welcome. We want to be certain that there would be no age-based discrimination for those receiving it, so that those who are older than 75 don't have an advantage compared to seniors who are 65 to 74, coming from a government that claims to be against all forms of discrimination. The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And as you know, the most important programs for Canadians are indexed to inflation. That's a very important element of those programs. When it comes to our seniors, we have already decided, we have already voted in favor of the legislation for this increase in OAS for people aged 75 and up, and they will receive $815 more. And that's 3.3 million people in Canada who will benefit from that.
Mr. Burnaby.
Families are at their wits' end because of the increase in the cost of life. And the Liberals' response is pitiful. They say inflation's not our fault. Everything's going to be fine. But can the Liberals try walking a mile in the shoes of a parent who's had to cut the grocery budget to make ends meet? Yet there are things that the Liberals could do right now to help families. Why aren't the Liberals doubling the GST tax credit? Why aren't they upping the Canada Child Benefit by $500? Why are they doing nothing to help people get through this crisis? The Honourable Deputy Prime Minister. Well, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for the question, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to take this opportunity to highlight that there is money that is going to be going out targeted to those who need it most this year. Let's start with this year. We increased the Canada Worker Benefit for the people who need it most. They are going to receive $2,300 more this year. As well, we will be providing a $500 supplement for those who need help with housing.
North Island, Powell River.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians are going hungry. Perhaps the Prime Minister and this Finance Minister have never gone hungry. Perhaps they've never had to suffer through pain because they can't afford medication because they have to pay the rent. Or maybe they've never had to walk to work because they can't afford the gas to get there in their own car. But those are the realities of Canadians across this country right now. While we know the oil and gas industry is reaping mega extra profits, Canadians need urgent help today, not months from now. Will the government finally step up for Canadians and make sure that they get double the GST and make sure that
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the fact is we looked ahead, and our government has already set in motion 5 important programs that will deliver support starting this year to the Canadians who need it the most. The Canada Worker Benefit, a family of 3 can get up to $2,300 more. The 10% increase in the OAS, a senior can get $815 more. The $500 payment to people experiencing housing affordability challenges. Dental care.
Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, Canadians from coast to coast are worried about the rising rate of violent gun crimes in their communities, and they are calling on this government for action. But instead of listening to Canadians, the Liberals are removing mandatory jail time for offences like robbery with a firearm, extortion with a firearm, and weapons trafficking, just to name a few. Canadians don't want to see government bills that help dangerous criminals skip out on jail time. They want dangerous criminals taken off our streets. Will the Liberals reverse course on their soft on crime agenda?
Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, serious crime in this country will always carry with it serious consequences. The kinds of situations that we are targeting with this legislation on minimum mandatory penalties, Mr. Speaker, are situations where public security, public safety is not at risk, Mr. Speaker. It is being done to attack the systemic overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous peoples in the criminal justice system. The kinds of situations he is describing are being attacked in Bill C-21, and we're raising the maximum penalties.
Honourable Member for Fundy Royal.
Mr. Speaker, that is incomprehensible. Canadians simply don't buy this Liberal logic. According to Liberal logic, the Justice Minister's bill tackles racism by decreasing jail time for gun crimes. But the Public Safety Minister's bill tackles racism for increasing jail time for the exact same crimes. They can't have it both ways, so which one is it?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker,
I believe they were very excited to have 2 people trying to speak, so we'll just calm down and we'll only let one go. The Honourable Minister of Justice from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, this attack on minimum mandatory penalties coming from a lawyer is something that's hard to understand. The situations that he describes are not the situations that would be touched by minimum mandatory penalties. Mr. Speaker, minimum mandatory penalties are being abandoned because they fail. It's a failed so-called tough-on-crime policy. The jurisdictions in the United States that inspired the Harper government to bring in these minimum mandatory penalties are are abandoning minimum mandatory penalties one by one. Serious crime will always be punished seriously, Mr. Speaker. There's no threat to...
The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Speaker, on Thursday, May 19th at Public Safety Committee, the Minister of Public Safety confirmed that he stood by his statement in Parliament on May 2nd that, quote, on the recommendation of law enforcement, we invoked the Emergencies Act, end quote. We now know that police did not make this recommendation, and his own deputy minister said yesterday that he was misunderstood. When did it become acceptable for a minister of this House to spread misinformation?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, let me, over the heckling of my colleagues who I know are
Are we ready to proceed? The honourable member for Sturgeon River Parkland asks the question. I think he wants to hear the answer. The honourable minister.
Mr. Speaker, and I'm happy to give it by refreshing his memory and all members in this chamber's memory that last winter we experienced an unprecedented public order emergency in the opinion of law enforcement, which is why prior to invoking the Emergencies Act, we sought their advice on the powers that were needed to restore public safety. And let me quote from Commissioner Lucky's testimony before the committee when she said, and I'm going to
interrupt the honourable minister. I just want to make sure we can hear that quote. Everybody's ready to listen? Okay, the honourable minister, please proceed.
From the top, Mr. Speaker. I was just about to say, Commissioner Lucky said the following: the Emergencies Act did give us the tools that we needed to get the job done quickly. We invoked the Emergencies Act to restore public safety. It was the right and responsible thing to do.
Member for Sturgeon River Parkland.
Well, Mr. Speaker, our memories are very clear on this side of the House. The minister repeatedly stated that police recommended that the government invoke the Emergencies Act.
Right.
But now we know that not a single police force in this country made that recommendation. The minister has had multiple opportunities to clarify, but he stood by his statement. And now his deputy minister is saying, well, the minister was misunderstood. Who is telling the truth? The public safety minister or his most senior public servant?
The honourable minister for public safety.
Mr. Speaker, I want to be absolutely clear that last winter, when we saw an unprecedented public order emergency in the opinion of law enforcement, we filled the gaps that existed within authorities which were not effective at the time to restore public safety. Prior to invoking the Emergencies Act, we sought the advice, as any responsible government would do, prior to invoking the Act. And you heard Commissioner Lucky say that we needed, for example, power to compel tow trucks as a result of protesters who wouldn't leave. I wonder why they wouldn't leave, Mr. Speaker. They wouldn't leave because Conservatives were egging them on to stay. That was wrong, and we invoked it to protect Canadians, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Public Safety knows the severity of invoking the Emergencies Act, the historical significance, the impact on due process and charter rights. The details of why and how this government invoked the Act are key. They will set a precedent in Canada on government powers, Mr. Speaker. And I'm sure the Minister would agree there is no room for being misunderstood when setting historical precedent. There is also no room for hiding cabinet documents from Justice Rouleau's inquiry. Will the Liberal government waive cabinet confidence and release the documents to Justice Rouleau?
The honourable minister.
As we said all along, the government will cooperate with Justice Rouleau, will cooperate with the Joint Parliamentary Committee to be transparent, because I agree with my colleague that we need to scrutinize the invocation of the Emergencies Act, Mr. Speaker. My point is that the facts are very clear. We were in the midst and in the throes of an unprecedented public order emergency in the opinion of nonpartisan professional law enforcement, and when we sought sought their advice about which powers were needed to restore public safety. We listened to it, and we invoked to restore public safety, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
The minister's being a bit vague on my question of whether his government's going to release the documents, and the question of cabinet confidence is critical to the Rouleau inquiry, as argued by former clerk of the Privy Council, who said cabinet confidence, quote, should not be utilized to impede the search of the truth where the validity of government action is seriously contested and the law demands that it be reviewed, as is the case with the recent declaration of emergency in response of the trucker convoy protest and blockade. So in other words, this is a really big deal, Mr. Speaker. Will the Liberals respect Justice Rouleau's request and hand over the cabinet documents, yes or no?
Great question. The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
Mr. Speaker, when we invoked the Emergencies Act, we did it to restore public safety after we sought the advice of law enforcement, Mr. Speaker. Following that, we commenced the public inquiry, giving...
I'm sure the honourable member for Kildonan St. Paul missed the first part, so maybe start right from the top, Mr. Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we invoked the Emergencies Act to restore public safety. We did it following the conversations and consultations that we had with law enforcement, including on which powers were needed to restore public safety. At the conclusion of it, we revoked the Emergencies Act, and as part of that, we're now participating in an exercise of transparency, including with Judge Rouleau, who has the power to compel witnesses, documents, including classified information. Of course, the government will cooperate because we agree that the act should be scrutinized so that it is never abused, Mr. Speaker, and we will always follow that principle. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the Official Languages Commissioner has received a record number of complaints this year. 5,409 complaints. That's 3 times last year's number. And at the heart of this tidal wave are complaints relative to the Prime Minister's appointments of people who do not speak French to key positions, especially the Governor General. The Prime Minister is personally responsible for a quarter of these complaints. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister remind her boss that French is not a second-class language? The Honourable Minister of Official Languages. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his question, and I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Mr. Théberge, the Official Languages Commissioner, for his work and for his report. Our modernization of the Official Languages Act is still being debated here in the House of Commons, and this law will be very important to ensure that we do everything that we can to protect and promote this beautiful language, and I hope that members of the Bloc Québécois will work with us to make sure that we can pass this bill as quickly as possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Member for La Pointe de l'Île. Mr. Speaker, the Commissioner also courageously denounced a slippery slope at the federal level. It seems that French is perceived, and I quote the Commissioner, as being an obstacle to promoting diversity and reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. And another quote, I feel that official languages and diversity go hand in hand as 2 ways to be more inclusive. Mr. Speaker, when will the federal government understand that French and diversity can and should go hand in hand, and that when the French language is devalued in appointments, that's not inclusive? The Honourable Minister. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've been very clear, promoting and protecting French is a priority, and today I'm not here to fight with the Bloc Québécois. Quite the contrary, I want to work very closely with my colleagues to make sure we can get this bill passed as quickly as possible, Bill C-13, which will make a big difference in the lives of Canadians. What we saw this week as committee it was a waste of time, and I hope that we will be able to work with all members of this House so that we can get Bill C-13 passed as quickly as possible, and listen to witnesses and make sure that we have the best possible bill so that we can get it passed as quickly as possible.
Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, the President of the United States has ordered the release of their strategic reserve to help struggling families with record high gas prices at the pumps. Here's an idea for our jet-setting Prime Minister for his meeting in Los Angeles. We know he likes to import American cultural problems to paper over his lack of leadership. Could he instead import good ideas from our neighbors to the south, like taking action on high gas prices instead of his habitual dividing of Canadians? Or does he want to maintain his reputation as Canada's divider-in-chief?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank the honourable member for the same question as yesterday. We certainly recognize the current impact that the invasion of Ukraine by Russia is having on global energy prices around the world. That is something that is of concern to all countries, all democratic countries. It is something that we are working actively with our partners in the United States and in Europe to address. We have announced that we will be increasing oil and gas production by 300,000 barrels a day by the end of the year, alongside our American friends who are doing likewise. We are working to stabilize energy prices, and here at home we are working to ensure affordability for Canadians on an ongoing basis.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen Nicola.
Divider-in-chief and ditherer-in-chief right over there. Yeah. Canadians have long appreciated that the most groceries are exempt from GST. This keeps groceries affordable for families. Yesterday, when the Conservative opposition voted to temporarily do the same by suspending GST on gas and diesel to help Canadians with out-of-control prices at the pump, the SPENDP Liberals voted against it. Unbelievable. When will this Prime Minister put affordability ahead of Liberal tax and spend ideology?
Great question. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. From day one, this government has put affordability at the forefront. The opposition voted against middle-class tax cuts. They voted against the daycare program to ensure affordability for Canadians. They have voted against affordability measures since 2015, and they continue to do so. Here, we are working on practical solutions to address the energy crisis that is facing the world. We are working to ensure that we are increasing our production, working with our partners around the world to address this issue, to stabilize energy prices, and to ensure affordability for Canadians going forward.
Excellent. The Honourable Member for Calgary-Mindapore.
The price of gas and diesel is hitting record highs across Canada, making it more expensive for Canadians to live their everyday lives. The Liberal government keeps blaming oil and gas companies, but it's Liberal energy policies that have put us in this place. Energy workers build our communities, help the disadvantaged, and provide billions of dollars to national programs. So when will the Prime Minister stop blaming our natural resources sector, take responsibility, and suspend the GST on gas and diesel?
The Honourable Minister of Natural Resources.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Certainly, I understand the role, the important role that energy workers play in this country. I've spent much of my time since being appointed to this post in Calgary, working with the energy sector. I would actually suggest to my colleagues across the way that they perhaps meet with some of the energy sector to understand that they are focused very much on ensuring that we are doing what we need to do to address energy security issues, to address affordability issues, and yes, to fight climate change.
Excellent. The member for Calgary-Mindapore.
This Liberal government is determined to phase out Canada's oil and gas sector, and now our Labour Minister is surprised that we don't have enough workers in the industry to keep up with demand. As prices for gas and diesel keep climbing, this Liberal government knows it's their policies that put us here. Their years of industry-killing legislation and laying off thousands of workers are ruining families and lives. So when will this government take responsibility for this cost of living crisis and provide Canadians with some relief?
The Minister.
Certainly, it is important that we are thinking about how we actually create good economic prospects for people across this country, that we are creating jobs and economic opportunities. I was very pleased last week to launch the regional energy and natural resource tables, which are about building on a province-by-province, territory-by-territory basis, a future that is going to create those jobs and economic opportunities in a manner that actually will drive growth and prosperity, in a manner that is consistent with meeting our moral obligation to our children to fight climate change. I certainly look forward to working with the energy sector as we move forward in that direction.
Honourable Member for Elmwood Transcona.
Mr. Speaker, when people lose their job, they count on employment insurance to keep their homes and feed their families while they look for new work. But the EI system has been broken for far too long. There are more people who pay into EI that do not qualify for benefits when they need them than who do. After almost 7 years in government, the Liberals finally tried to fix something about the EI system in the latest budget bill, and they fell flat on their face. So when are they finally going to fix the EI system and do right by Canadian workers?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are I apologize, Mr. Speaker. We are working very hard to modernize employment insurance. Quickly, when we got into the pandemic, we recognized that the way Canadians work, the EI system hadn't kept up with the way Canadians work, and that's exactly why we're working to improve the system in terms of adequacy, in terms of access, in terms of the individuals who pay in that don't yet have access. The member knows very well that we're working very hard on this file. Thank you.
The honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, today, Quebec's National Council of the Unemployed is launching a campaign highlighting this government's monumental failure to deliver on its promise to reform EI. The pandemic has shown that the current system doesn't work. The self-employed, freelancers, and women, for example, are left out. Real reform is needed so workers have access to good benefits to make ends meet. When will the Liberals finally fix the EI system to help struggling families? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the pandemic laid bare the fact that reform is required to update EI. The government is currently conducting consultations on how to modernize the system so that it serves workers and employers better, and to strengthen the rights of workers hired on digital platforms so that their work can be included in work that's eligible for EI. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For Etobicoke Centre.
Mr. Speaker, Russia's genocidal war on Ukraine has caused the largest refugee crisis in Europe since World War II, with 14 million Ukrainians having fled their homes and about 6 million having fled to other countries. In my community in Etobicoke Centre and across this country, Canadians have opened their arms to Ukrainian refugees, opening up their homes, collecting donations, offering financial support, and more. Could the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship please share with Canadians what the Government of Canada is doing to support Ukrainians fleeing Russia's genocidal war on Ukraine?
Honourable Minister of Immigration.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to begin by thanking the member for Etobicoke Centre, who has been a tireless champion for Ukraine and Ukrainian Canadians from the beginning of this invasion. Mr. Speaker, this attack, this unjust war of aggression is an affront to humanity and the very values that underpin the international legal order. Canada has opened its arms to provide safe havens so far to 30,000 Ukrainians or more who've already landed in Canada. But it's not enough that they get here, they need to be supported when they arrive. We've arranged federal charters, including last week in my home province of Nova Scotia. We've established income supports, temporary accommodation, reception supports at airports, and settlement services, including language training. We're going to continue to do what we can to demonstrate this is not a European problem, a problem for the world. Canada will continue to play a leadership role, and I thank my honourable colleague once more. Slava Ukraini.
The honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Well, Mr. Speaker, we've heard from the Parliamentary Secretary the tremendous risk for and from unvaccinated air travellers. However, isn't it true, Mr. Speaker, that many unvaccinated Canadians can actually travel by air with a negative antigen test?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. All Canadians are sick and tired of COVID, and we all agree on that. But just wishing away or ignoring it will not simply make it go away. Over the past 3 months, we can continue to see more deaths from COVID, over 1,700 in the month of May. The most important thing we can do is to get through this pandemic is to drive up vaccination rates. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to be informed by science and not the political games of the Conservative opposition.
The honourable member for Cumberland Colchester.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I find it fascinating. We don't want to wish away science. We want to wish away incompetence. And what's important here, Mr. Speaker, is to answer the actual question, because if an antigen test is good for some Canadians to get on an airplane, why not all Canadians? What is the difference between Canadians who are unvaccinated, for instance, in Cumberland Colchester, who want to fly, and those who live in northern communities? Well, the answer is clear, Mr. Speaker, because the only difference is not medical science, it's political science. When will this government drop these vindictive mandates and let Canadians get back to pre-pandemic normal?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Yesterday, the member from Cumberland Colchester tried to minimize the COVID-19 deaths in this country by referencing deaths from other causes. Mr. Speaker, every lost life is tragic. And on this side of the House, we understand that it's a government's job to do everything we can to protect people and save lives, whether that's from COVID-19 or any other cause. We owe it to them and all Canadians to remain focused on keeping them safe and our communities healthy, and we will continue to do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, the Parliamentary Secretary for the Minister of Health needs to get in line with the rest of the country's 55 of them that have dropped all the mandates. So he was informed the other day that Canadians that are unvaccinated can travel on ferries as long as the journey's less than 24 hours. So why can't unvaccinated Canadians travel on flights within Canada since they're all less than 24 hours? When is this Liberal government going to get rid of the mandates and get us back to pre-pandemic normal?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives can't seem to make up their mind about vaccinations. The member from Yorkton Melville claims the government has a secret agenda after refusing to get vaccinated. Another Conservative, the MP from Niagara West, tabled a position.
I'm going to interrupt the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Calm down now.
The honourable member for Sarnia-Lambton is rather far, and I'm sure she wants to hear the answer. So I'm going to let the honourable parliamentary secretary start right from the beginning so that she can hear it. And I'm sure everybody will be very quiet so that he can actually be heard. The honourable parliamentary secretary from the top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It's hard to hear myself sometimes in this place. The Conservatives just can't seem to make up their mind about vaccinations. The member from Yorkton Melville claims that the government has a secret agenda after refusing to get vaccinated. Another Conservative, the MP from Niagara West, tabled a petition in this House to ban all mRNA vaccines. Mr. Speaker, those are the vaccines that have saved millions of lives around the world. Science is clear that vaccines are safe and effective in reducing the spread of COVID-19, as well as severe cases, hospitalizations, and death. I'd encourage the members opposite in the Conservative opposition to get behind that and encourage their constituents to get a third or a fourth dose. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable member for Hastings, Lennox and Addington.
The ArriveCAN provides a serious accessibility barrier to many Canadians, in particular those who may not own a smartphone or have the digital literacy to properly navigate the process. Not everyone is tech savvy. While the introduction of a paper form was a good first step, and one that should have been in place since day one, Mr. Speaker, when will this government commit to listening to the thousands of Canadians experiencing problems at the border and stop the mandatory use of the ArriveCAN app?
The Honourable Minister for Public Safety.
My colleague for underlining some of the issues which we've worked through with CBSA on ArriveCAN. I'm pleased to report that since the low point of travel during the pandemic, we're now seeing levels come back over 700%, which is good news. That's as a result of the modifications that we've made, easing travel restrictions. That's as a result of lowering some of the barriers that my colleague pointed out with ArriveCAN. And I'm also pleased to report to this chamber that compliance with ArriveCAN is over 90%. And in the long run, will make the traveler's voyage that much more efficient, Mr. Speaker. So we'll continue to work with all members on it. Thank you.
The honourable member for Avignon-Lamitis, Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, the increase in gun violence in Montreal in recent years is part of a new phenomenon, according to experts. Gang members are now firing multiple shots at buildings and cars to send a message and mark what they claim to be their territory. The guns they're using aren't covered by Bill C-21. Does the minister admit that the solution to this terrible problem isn't to make some guns illegal when they already should have been, as C-21 does? The solution lies elsewhere. It's to keep illegal guns out of our neighborhoods. The Honourable Minister of Public Safety. Mr. Speaker, I fully agree with my colleague. The cycle of violence involving guns is at such a point, at such a height, and we've already taken action on assault weapons, and we're going to continue with the next steps. But the question now is C-21. We have to stop delaying and obstructing. The Conservatives have to stop that. The debate has to begin on C-21 to protect our communities, and I'm always open to working together with the Bloc on this. Thank you. The honourable member for Rivière-du-Nord. Mr. Speaker, the question wasn't about C-21. Like my colleague said, gunshots in the streets of Montreal don't always kill, but they're still a victim, the public sense of security. This gun culture that's taking hold in Montreal is also a gang culture. So to solve the problem, the police need help dealing with the gang situation. C-21 isn't a bad bill, Mr. Speaker, but it doesn't provide any solution to this problem. When will the minister see that one of the problems to this problem is to create a list of criminal organizations so that we can address the gang problem? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, our government has already taken a lot of concrete steps. For example, a $350 million fund for police services, but with all due respect, C21 does take concrete steps to target organized crime. For example, increased penalties and new surveillance authorities to prevent gun violence, and we will work together with the Bloc and all members to pass this bill. It's very important. It's key to protecting our communities. Thank you very much. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Good morning. Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. A 12-year-old girl just walking down the street found herself caught up in the middle of a shooting in Montreal, and she was traumatized. This is happening on our streets in Quebec, Mr. Speaker. Instead of tackling the problem of street gangs and illegal gun trafficking, this government, with Bill C-5, is doing just the opposite. They're removing mandatory prison sentences for crimes involving firearms. How can this government be so out of touch as to do the exact opposite of what is so obviously needed and common sense? The Honourable Minister of Justice. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Serious offences are still being punished seriously. The situation my colleague just described is not a situation that's covered by C-5. Bill C-5 covers situations that are not a danger to public safety, that are not a threat to the community's sense of safety. Bill C-5 targets overrepresentation of Black and Indigenous people in the justice system. That's precisely what we're accomplishing with that. The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Etchemins-Lévis. Well, here on this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, we believe serious and violent gun crimes warrant hard time. We stand with the victims. It's sad to see this government openly siding with the criminals. It even lets them serve their sentences under house arrest for robbery or extortion with a firearm. Those are quite serious crimes, Mr. Speaker. Why is this government so soft on crime with C-5? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, it's something else to see this government once again trying to defend a completely failed policy of Stephen Harper, the tough-on-crime approach. Mr. Speaker, what we're doing, we're still punishing very serious offenses in a very serious way. But what we're currently doing is when public safety is not threatened, when there's no danger, no threat to public safety, we're doing things differently to better support communities and victims. The Honourable Member for Charlesbourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, here's what Stephen Fogang, a member of Montreal's Black community, had to say about Bill C-5. He said, when the government contemplates getting rid of some of the minimum sentences in the criminal code, we can only wonder whether they're more interested in protecting criminals than the public and victims of crime. Would the Prime Minister be willing to meet with Mr. Fogang and members of other communities to get the facts instead of protecting the criminals? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Harper's tough-on-crime approach was a total failure. Our jails have simply been filled up with Black and Indigenous people. It didn't work. So mandatory minimum sentences were part of the problem, and they were causing delays in the court system all around the world, Mr. Speaker, and especially in the U.S., which Harper was basically copying. They are all getting rid of minimum sentences, mandatory minimums there, because they realize they don't work. So we're acting to better protect society. The Honourable Member for Châteauguay-Lacolle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Indigenous peoples and First Nations organizations have long called for reforms to policing. These communities deserve policing services that don't exacerbate systemic racism. It's time for Indigenous policing to be seen as essential. Indigenous groups have been very clear that they want legislation that recognizes and funds First Nations policing as a priority. Mr. Speaker, what is this government doing to support culturally sensitive First Nations policing and to recognize its essential role on the road to reconciliation? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, first of all, I'd like to thank my colleague for her hard work.
Funded culturally sensitive Indigenous police services is a top priority and vital to our commitment to walk the pathway to truth and reconciliation. We understand the importance of recognizing Indigenous police services as an essential service, which is why our government is launching a public engagement process imminently to develop legislation. In consultation with Indigenous groups, provinces and territories, we'll work to further protect Indigenous communities all across Canada. Mr. Speaker, we will do this work because it is in response to the calls to justice, calls to action, and because it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Honourable Member for Brentford-Brent.
Mr. Speaker, the 83-year-old father of my constituent was deported from Canada because of this government's draconian mandates. He arrived in Canada, and despite being doubly vaccinated, one of the vaccines he had was not approved. He cooperated and got the Pfizer shot. That didn't help. After being held 3 days, he was sent back to Venezuela to return after a 2-week quarantine. Unnecessary stress, extra expenses, zero common sense. Will the minister apologize for the appalling treatment of this family?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Back in 2020, the Conservatives claimed that we wouldn't have enough vaccines for all Canadians, but let me be clear. Canada has sufficient supply to ensure that all eligible Canadians are protected for primary series, boosters, and pediatrics. On this side of the House, our government will continue to make sure that we're putting the health and safety of Canadians first, because nobody wants another wave of this COVID-19 pandemic. Mr. Speaker, the member opposite raised a particular case. If you'd like to discuss it personally, I'd be happy to accept a call or an email anytime. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
Mr. Speaker, Canada is in a housing crisis. Too many families are unable to find a safe roof over their head, and young Canadians, many are just being forced to give up on the dream of ever even owning a home. There's a simple solution, though. Build more houses and increase the housing supply. Yet all we see this government do is pose for photo ops at spending announcements, but there's a curious lack of ribbon cuttings. Mr. Speaker, my question is simple. When is this government going to get off the sidelines and demonstrate leadership to end exclusionary zoning and say yes to building more homes for Canadians?
Minister for Housing.
Mr. Speaker, I have no doubt to say that they are facing a crisis of leadership because the honourable member fails to mention that his leader, his very leader, refuses us to help municipalities with supply. His member from Matsui Mission, Fraser Canyon, says that we should step back and not invest in provincial housing programs. He is opposed on record against foreign ban of Canadian residential real estate. And he has opposed funding for affordable housing for Indigenous peoples. Rhetoric, rhetoric, rhetoric.
The Honourable Member for Parry Sound Muskoka.
There it is, Mr. Speaker. Once again, more rhetoric, more talk, no real action. If billions of dollars, if announcing billions of dollars could solve this problem, we'd have a housing surplus in this country right now. In fact, the number of houses per 1,000 Canadians has gone down dramatically since 2016 under this government's watch. Again, Minister, when is this government finally going to have the courage to do what's right and commit to working with provincial governments and municipalities to end exclusionary zoning and fix this crisis?
The Honourable Minister.
We're doing exactly that through the Housing Accelerator Fund. The Housing Accelerator Fund is all about supply, supply, supply. But they are on record of opposing the Housing Accelerator Fund.
I'm just going to interrupt. The Honourable Member for Parry Sound Muskoka asked a question. He wants to hear the answer, I'm sure. So if we can just keep it down. The Honourable Minister from the top, please.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member should speak to his leader who has trashed and rubbished the Housing Accelerator Fund, which is all about supply. His colleague from Calgary Centre, from Calgary Riverbed, from Edmonton Riverbed, I should say, from Mission Matsquik, Fraser Canyon, from Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola, all of them have said contradictory things about housing supply, about support for first-time home buyers, about building more affordable housing in this country. They have no shame, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, as someone who's spent years working with social purpose organizations, I've seen firsthand how social innovation and social finance are a catalyst for positive change. Big challenges like climate change, energy security, poverty, systemic racism, food insecurity, housing affordability, reconciliation, and more can all be addressed by harnessing the ingenuity of our social innovators and our social entrepreneurs. That is why I'm proud of the work that our government is doing to implement Canada's first social innovation and social finance strategy, which will drive economic growth, build more inclusive communities, and help transition to a low-carbon economy. Can the minister update the House on the progress our government is making on building a stronger social innovation and social finance ecosystem?
Before the minister answers the question, if I can have your attention, please.
Zip it.
If I can have your attention, please. Can I continue? I just want to remind the honourable members, when they're referring to someone, please refer to them by their title or by the riding they represent, not by their first name. And mocking someone in the House, regardless of what side you're on, is not something, it's not an example we want to send to our children who are watching today, and they're wondering what's going on. So I just want everyone to just reflect on what they're saying, please. The Honourable Minister, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and let me start by thanking the member for Whitby, who is the hardest working member in this House when it comes to social finance.
Hear, hear.
Social purpose organizations like charities and nonprofits. Social purpose organizations like charities and nonprofits play a key role in addressing complex social and environmental issues. They are more important than ever, as many of these issues have been exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic. That is why we launched the renewed Investment Readiness Program in the summer of 2021, which will provide another $50 million to continue to support social purpose organizations in building capacity and increasing their investment readiness. This will also help the social purpose organizations take advantage of the $755 million Social Finance Fund. Thank you so much to the member of Whitby for his excellent question.
The honourable member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
People with disabilities are relying on this government to fast-track a Canada Disability Benefit to deliver support without delay. After years of a pandemic, the skyrocketing cost of living is leaving people with disabilities behind. We know emergency COVID payments only reached less than 1/3 of these Canadians because the data was not available. That is unacceptable. Will the minister fix this problem immediately to make sure no one living with a disability is left out of needed income supports ever again?
Full minister.
Since 2015, our government has taken bold action to help persons with disabilities find and maintain employment and make Canada more inclusive. We've made significant progress, but of course, persons with disabilities still face serious barriers, to this in this country. And that's why we are introducing the historic Canada Disability Benefit and income supplement for working age Canadians with disabilities. Details of the CDB, including the benefit about and eligibility criteria, will be informed by ongoing engagements with the community in the spirit of nothing without us, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Saanich Gulf Islands.
Today is World Oceans Day, and our oceans are in distress. They are getting hotter. Acid levels are rising. Oxygen levels are dropping. The heat absorbed by our oceans due to global warming is the equivalent to 7 Hiroshima bombs every second, every hour, every day. Approving TMX pipeline in Bay du Nord just make matters worse. As it is, net zero by 2050 is not a goal, it's an epitaph. When will this government take the climate crisis seriously as the emergency it is?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, and I want to thank the honourable member for the question and remind her that we do take climate change very seriously. That's why in our emissions reduction plan, it is an ambitious sector-by-sector path for Canada to reach our 2030 emission reduction targets on to net zero by 2050. It has broad support from environmental groups, industry, farmers, and Mr. Speaker, it's going to deliver clean air, a healthy environment, and a strong economy. That's what Canadians want, and that's what we will deliver.
I'm afraid that's all the time we have for questions for today. I wish to draw the attention of members to the presence in the gallery of the Honourable Murray Rankin, our former colleague and current